Pay close attention to what I'm about to tell you. There is an astronomical event that repeats once every 3.5 decades. The last time it occurred, the Berlin Wall fell. The political map of the world was redrawn. Entire systems collapsed and new ones were born from scratch. Right now, as you're listening to this, Saturn and Neptune are meeting, and this time at 0 degrees Aries. For those unfamiliar with astrology, that is the exact point where the entire zodiac cycle starts over. Think of it as a cosmic clock resetting to its original position. This alignment is already active, and its effects will intensify over the coming weeks. But what interests me isn't the event itself. What interests me is the effect this alignment has on a very specific type of person. You know that feeling that's followed you since childhood? Being in a room full of people and still feeling like no one truly sees you. Noticing things that others seem to miss entirely. Carrying a restlessness that has no name but never leaves you alone. If you know what I'm talking about, this video was made for you. I'm George. This channel is a space for those who feel they carry something different inside. If this kind of conversation makes sense to you, stay with me and consider subscribing. Because what comes next might put into words something you felt for a long time, but never knew how to explain. Let me give you some quick context, because it matters. Saturn is associated with the concrete, with discipline, with everything that requires effort and persistence to exist. Think of a house foundation. It's not pretty. Nobody takes a picture of it. But without it, nothing stands. Neptune represents the opposite, the abstract, intuition, that certainty that comes from within, with no logical explanation. The dream that sounds absurd, but a part of you knows is real. Most of the time, these two forces operate separately. Your dreams go one way, and your physical reality goes another. You've probably felt this. Having a clear vision of what you want, but feeling like the world won't cooperate. Or having an opportunity right in front of you, but not feeling ready to take it. When Saturn meets Neptune, that distance shrinks. What is intuitive gains form. What is abstract finds a practical path. And here's the detail that very few people are discussing. This meeting doesn't affect everyone the same way. It hits hardest those who already carry within themselves a heightened spiritual sensitivity. Those who already feel, perceive, and question beyond the surface. Think of it this way. Imagine there are frequencies inside you that have been operating at low volume for years. This conjunction works like someone turning the dial all the way up. What was a whisper becomes impossible to ignore. And that is exactly what's happening right now with 9 very specific traits. Traits that the chosen ones have carried since birth, often without knowing it. First mark. The inability to play a role. Let me give you a concrete example. Have you ever been in a work meeting or a family lunch where everyone was agreeing with something you knew was false? And while they nodded, smiled, and moved on, you felt a knot in your stomach. An almost physical pressure telling you, I can't be a part of this. That's not stubbornness. It's not arrogance. It's an internal filter that automatically rejects what isn't true. People who carry this mark can't sustain a facade for very long. They might try. They last a few days, maybe weeks, pretending they're fine at a job they hate, or maintaining a friendship that lacks depth. But the body pushes back. The mind pushes back. And at some point they simply can't do it anymore. I know people who walked away from 15-year careers because they woke up one ordinary morning and realized they'd been living someone else's life. It wasn't an impulse. It was years of ignoring that internal filter finally catching up. With the energy of this conjunction, that filter is going to become more sensitive than ever. Situations you previously tolerated out of politeness or convenience will become genuinely unbearable. Second mark. Perception that runs ahead of the facts. Have you ever known a phone call would bring bad news before picking it up? Have you looked at someone smiling and felt, with absolute certainty, that something was wrong behind that smile? Have you walked into a house and felt your entire body react, as if the environment itself had weight? As a child, maybe you heard that you were too sensitive, that you were being dramatic, that you were seeing things that weren't there. And over time, maybe you started doubting yourself, shutting that perception down, ignoring the signals. But they never stopped coming. This ability to read situations works like an antenna. It picks up frequencies that most people simply don't register. It's not supernatural in some fantastical sense. It's a neurological and spiritual sensitivity that operates in deeper layers of processing. In the coming days, that antenna is going to pick up signals with unusual clarity. Pay attention to your dreams, to the thoughts that appear out of nowhere, to the coincidences that seem too specific to be random. In a normal week, you might dismiss those signals. During this period, each one of them carries information. Don't filter it through your rational mind. Just record it, observe, and then compare it with what unfolds in the days that follow. Third mark. The refusal to live on autopilot. There's a scene that repeats in the life of anyone who carries this mark. You're in a setting where everyone seems satisfied. A reasonable job, a paycheck that covers the bills, a predictable routine. And while the people around you build their lives inside that structure without questioning it, you feel a tightness that nobody understands. This isn't enough. It's not greed. It's not ingratitude. It's something more fundamental. A need for meaning that goes beyond material survival. I know a man who worked as a manager at a stable company for 8 years. Good salary. Respected by his colleagues. But every night before bed, he felt a tightness in his chest, as if his soul were saying, "This isn't what we came here to do." It took him 3 years to listen. When he finally left, he had no plan. But for the first time in a decade, he could sleep without that pressure. That restlessness is a signal. Not that your life is wrong, but that there's something inside you that hasn't found its expression yet. The energy of this conjunction is going to sharpen that signal. It's going to push you to look at what you've built so far and separate what's genuine from what's just filler. And that distinction, as uncomfortable as it may be, is the first step toward building something that truly supports the person you're becoming. Fourth mark. Displacement within your own family. This mark tends to be the quietest one, and paradoxically, the one that leaves the deepest scars. Because it's one thing to feel different among co-workers. It's something entirely different to feel like a stranger inside your own home, among the people who should know you best. You grew up watching patterns that others followed without questioning. The way your family handled money, conflict, affection, truth. And while everyone repeated those patterns as if they were laws of nature, something inside you resisted. This doesn't make sense. Maybe you were the first in your family to question why certain conversations were off limits. The first to say that something hurt when everyone else preferred to pretend everything was fine. The first to refuse a role that was assigned to you before you were old enough to choose. That creates friction, misunderstanding, emotional distance, even while living under the same roof. But there's an angle you may never have considered. Every chain that repeats across generations needs someone who refuses to be another link. Someone who looks at the pattern and says, "This stops with me." Saturn governs ancestry, inherited systems. The structures passed from grandparent to parent, from parent to child. And in this conjunction, it illuminates exactly what needs to be interrupted in your family line. Don't be surprised if old memories resurface in the coming days. If situations with relatives that were stagnant suddenly start moving again. That's not regression. It's the process of closing what no longer belongs to you, to make room for what truly does. Fifth mark. A goodness that survives everything. This mark is easy to recognize in yourself. Just look back and count how many times you kept being good to someone who didn't deserve it. How many times you forgave when the logical thing was to walk away. How many times you helped knowing it wouldn't be returned. How many times you opened the door for someone who, in the end, used that opening against you. And even after all of that, your natural instinct is still to extend a hand. This confuses people. It confuses even you sometimes, because the world teaches that after being betrayed, the correct response is to harden, to shut down, to protect yourself with indifference. But your heart operates on a different logic. It didn't harden because your compassion isn't a reaction to what happens around you. It's part of your makeup. Now, this doesn't mean you should accept everything from everyone. And this is where this conjunction brings a valuable contribution. Saturn is the planet of boundaries, of maturity, of the ability to say no without guilt. In the coming days, you're going to feel a clearer distinction between generosity and self-sacrifice, between keeping your heart open and allowing just anyone to walk through without deserving it. Your goodness won't diminish, it will mature. And a good heart with clear boundaries is far more powerful than a good heart that burns out because it never learned when to stop. Sixth mark. The search that never settles. Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you study, read, research, or explore, the feeling that something is missing never fully goes away? It's not a material void. It's not a lack of information. It's as if there's a deeper truth somewhere, and everything you've found so far are fragments. Pieces of a puzzle you're assembling without ever having seen the final picture. This search takes you to places that people around you can't comprehend. You read about cosmology, philosophy, spirituality, depth psychology. You question belief systems that most people accept by inertia, not out of rebellion, but out of a genuine need to find something that resonates as true. A woman once told me that at 42, she was studying sacred texts from traditions that had nothing to do with the religion she was raised in. Her husband found it odd. Her friends thought it was excessive, but she said something that stayed with me. I'm not looking for a religion. I'm looking for the source they all came from. That's the sixth mark in action. And what this conjunction is going to do with that search is significant. Neptune expands vision. Saturn provides concrete direction. Together, they transform that abstract restlessness into something that finally has shape. The mission you've always sensed but could never articulate starts to gain outline, not as a definitive answer, but as a path clear enough for you to take the next step. Seventh mark. Homesickness for a place you've never been. This is possibly the hardest mark to describe to someone who doesn't feel it, because it's not longing for a place, a person, or a time. It's longing for something your eyes have never seen. It shows up in the most unexpected moments. You're driving alone, no music playing, and suddenly a sadness washes over you that has no cause. You look at the sky at the end of the day, and something tightens in your chest. You hear a melody you've never heard before, and your eyes fill with tears for no reason. It's not depression, it's not clinical sadness. It's more like a memory that your mind doesn't recognize, but your soul identifies instantly. People who carry this mark tend to feel displaced, even in objectively good situations. Surrounded by people they love, with life working out, and yet a part of them still feels far from home. This conjunction is going to intensify that feeling, but not to cause suffering, to fulfill a specific function, reconnecting you with the dimension of your existence that goes beyond the everyday, reminding you that you're here temporarily, fulfilling a purpose, and that this restlessness isn't an illness. It's the memory of where you came from, and what you came here to do. 8th mark. Rejection that arrives before words. This one hurts in a particular way, because it has nothing to do with anything you've done. You walk into a new group. You haven't said anything controversial. You haven't provoked anyone. You haven't competed. And yet, you feel an invisible barrier. Glances that look away. Conversations that shift in tone when you approach. A resistance that seems to exist simply because you're there. Let me give you an analogy that might help. When you turn on a bright light in a dark room, the immediate reaction of anyone who was in the darkness is to squint. Not because the light is aggressive, but because the contrast is uncomfortable. That's what happens when someone with elevated energy walks into an environment where the dominant frequency is low. It's not personal rejection. It's an automatic response from people who aren't comfortable with that frequency. The problem is that this rejection often comes from where you least expect it. From longtime friends, from colleagues who seem to respect you, from your own family. And when it comes from those sources, the natural tendency is to think, what's wrong with me? Nothing, absolutely nothing. What this conjunction brings to this mark is an internal shift in perspective. Saturn, with its energy of maturity, is going to help you finally internalize something you might know intellectually, but haven't yet absorbed emotionally. Rejection and redirection are the same thing. When a space rejects you, it isn't diminishing you. It's showing you that your energy belongs somewhere else. And from now on, instead of shrinking yourself to fit, you're going to start walking toward where you're truly received. 9th mark. Access to what lies beyond the visible. The final mark is the one that connects all the others, and it functions as the thread running through your entire experience. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with the solution to a problem that had been tormenting you for weeks? Have you dreamed about a situation that materialized days later? Have you felt the presence of something you can't see, but that brings you an inexplicable calm during the hardest moments? This connection to what lies beyond the tangible isn't fantasy. It's the way your perception operates in layers that most people don't access. It works like a radio frequency. Everyone has the receiver, but not everyone knows how to tune in. You tune in naturally, sometimes without trying, sometimes without understanding what you're picking up. Neptune in this conjunction is going to amplify that tuning in a way you've never experienced. The veil between what is tangible and what is felt is going to get thinner. Clearer messages, sharper perceptions, dreams loaded with deeper meaning. The guidance here is simple. In the coming days, write everything down. Dreams, sudden thoughts, coincidences, phrases you hear at the exact moment you needed them. Don't judge, just record, and then connect the dots. You'll be surprised at what you find. Now, a practical section, because everything I've said up to this point loses its power if you don't do your part. This alignment doesn't create anything from scratch. It amplifies what already exists inside you. If what exists is clarity and determination, that's what grows. If what dominates is scattered energy and insecurity, that gets intensified too. So, 3 simple actions you can take today. First, finish something that's been pending. It can be small. An email you've been putting off for days, a disorganized drawer, an overdue bill. The size doesn't matter. What matters is the gesture. Because when you complete something, no matter how minor, you're signaling that your life has enough order to receive what comes next. I compare it to preparing a room before a move. You don't bring in the new furniture while the old pieces are still piled up in the middle of the floor. Making space is the first step. Second, identify a voice that weakens your confidence and step away from it for now. Maybe it's a specific person whose opinions always make you doubt yourself. Maybe it's a social media profile that triggers comparison. Maybe it's an internal phrase that's been repeating for years. I'm not capable of this. You don't have to resolve it forever, just for this week, because the alignment will amplify the strongest signal it finds inside you. If that signal is the voice of your doubt, that's what grows. If it's the voice of your conviction, that's what gains ground. Choose which signal to feed. Third, don't tell anyone what you're feeling right now. I know that sounds contradictory in a video that asks for interaction. But there's a difference between sharing within a community that understands and exposing something that's still forming to people who have no context to comprehend it. When an idea is still taking shape, it's vulnerable. A casual opinion, a skeptical glance, a dismissive, "Oh, one of those things again," can be enough to destabilize something that only needed silence to mature. Guard what you're feeling, the way you'd protect a freshly planted seed. It doesn't need exposure right now. It needs firm soil and time. Before I wrap up, I need to explain why I use the word rare. For most of life, there's a disconnect between what we feel and what we manage to make real. You have a clear vision, but the circumstances won't cooperate. Or the circumstances are perfect, but you don't feel ready. It's as if the internal and external are never synchronized at the same time. What makes this conjunction different is that it creates an interval where these two dimensions finally cooperate. Your intuition and your practical reality find common ground. Dreams that seem too far away gain concrete steps. Projects that only lived in your head start to look feasible. And this interval isn't a single day. It stretches across weeks. The decisions you make during this period carry greater weight than usual. The structures you build during this time tend to hold with more firmness. The directions you choose now have a stability that wasn't available before. I'm not saying something magical is going to happen overnight. I'm saying that the conditions for meaningful progress are aligning in a way that doesn't repeat often. And ignoring that is like having the wind at your back and choosing not to raise the sail. You don't need to change everything. You don't need all the answers. You just need to be willing. Willingness is enough, because when the internal and external finally agree, a single step in the right direction sets off a sequence you couldn't have planned on your own. If you're listening to this right now, I need to tell you something. Most people wouldn't have stayed this long. They would have left in the first few minutes, dismissed it as irrelevant, but you stayed, and that by itself confirms something about you. I spent a good part of this video describing 9 traits that many people spend their entire lives trying to hide. The authenticity that makes others uncomfortable. The perception that isolates. The goodness that gets mistaken for naivety. The search that never stops. The homesickness that has no address. If you recognized yourself in any of them, I want you to understand something with all the clarity I can offer. These are not weaknesses. They are instruments. Each of these marks exists in you because it serves a purpose that goes beyond your individual story. You don't carry these traits by accident. You carry them because they're necessary for what you came here to do. And right now, with this conjunction active, they are no longer going to operate in silence. They will pulse with an intensity that demands a choice from you. Keep trying to hide, or finally accept that hiding is no longer an option. My suggestion is that you stop resisting, not against the world, against yourself, against the part of you that still believes you need to be less than you are in order to be accepted. Because what's arriving doesn't ask you to become someone different. It asks you to finally stop pretending you're less than you've always been. And now, before I go, I want to leave you with a question, and I genuinely want you to think before you answer. Of the 9 marks I described today, which one has been present in your life from the very beginning? And at what specific moment did you realize, for the first time, that you weren't like the other people around you? What happened that day? Tell me in the comments, not for my sake, but because somewhere in the world, at this very moment, there's another person who carries the same marks as you, who still doesn't know what they mean, and who might find in your story the confirmation they need to stop hiding. I'm George, and if there's one thing I want you to take from this video, it's this. What comes next doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It requires you to be here, whole, willing. The rest takes care of itself. See you in the next one.